Life in the land that would one day become France began long before written chronicles, shaped by forests stretching across valleys, rivers carving routes of trade, and tribes whose identities were rooted in ritual, reputation, and resilience. Long before kingdoms and borders, this territory was a mosaic of Celtic societies known collectively as the Gauls, people who forged their world through oral tradition, seasonal gatherings, iron craftsmanship, and fiercely defended autonomy. Their settlements rose near fertile plains or along key waterways, forming networks of alliances and rivalries that influenced every aspect of their political and cultural life. Power rested not in a single authority but in councils of nobles, revered druids, warrior elites, and the collective voice of each tribe's free members. Their festivals, diplomacy, and warfare reflected a society that valued courage, negotiation, and honor in equal measure. The Gauls were far from isolated. Across the Mediterranean, Greek merchants established a foothold in the region that would become Marseille, exchanging wine, pottery, and ideas with the tribes inland. This contact introduced new influences while revealing the strategic and economic value of Gaul to outside powers. Tribal leaders learned quickly that partnerships with foreign traders could elevate their status, while others feared cultural dilution or dependency. These early tensions between openness and caution shaped intertribal politics long before Rome's legions marched north. Every tribe sought advantage, sometimes through trade, sometimes through alliances, and often through conflict with neighbors competing for territory, prestige, or control of vital trade routes. As the Roman Republic expanded aggressively in the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, Gaul's internal divisions became increasingly dangerous. Migrating Germanic groups crossed the Rhine seeking new lands and clashed with Gaulish tribes. These violent encounters destabilized the region and pushed some tribes to seek Roman intervention. They viewed Rome as a potential ally against powerful enemies rather than a future conqueror. Rome, however, interpreted these appeals as an invitation to take a greater role in Gaulish affairs. Julius Caesar, seeking military glory and political leverage back in Rome, seized the opportunity to launch a campaign that would change the region forever. Caesar's entry into Gaul marked the beginning of a relentless conquest. His legions were disciplined, heavily armed, and backed by engineering capabilities unlike anything the Gauls had ever faced. The tribes resisted fiercely, relying on mobility, intimate knowledge of the landscape, and the courage of their warriors. But their independence, once a strength, now hindered them. Attempts to unify against Rome were sporadic and fragile, until Vercingetorix rose from the Arverni tribe. He understood that only unity could counter Rome's power, and committed himself to binding the tribes together through a combination of persuasion, strategic brilliance, and uncompromising leadership. He ordered scorched earth tactics to deprive the Romans of supplies, fortified strongholds, and rallied warriors from distant tribes to resist the invasion. Yet unity came too late. Caesar's forces adapted quickly, constructing siege works, cutting supply lines, and applying constant pressure. The climactic struggle unfolded at Alesia in 52 BC, where Vercingetorix and his coalition faced the full force of Caesar's army. The Roman fortifications, built in record time, trapped the Gauls within the stronghold while repelling relief forces from outside. After a grueling battle marked by starvation, exhaustion, and collapsing morale, Vercingetorix chose to surrender, sacrificing his freedom in an attempt to save his people from further annihilation. His decision ended the last major resistance and sealed Gaul's fate. Rome now controlled the region completely. Under Roman rule, the transformation of Gaul accelerated dramatically. Roads connected distant towns, enabling faster communication, troop movement, and economic exchange. Stone amphitheaters rose where tribal gatherings once took place, signaling the spread of Roman entertainment and civic identity. Aqueducts carried fresh water into growing settlements, and administrative centers introduced Roman law, taxation, and census systems. Latin became the language of governance and commerce, gradually blending with local dialects and reshaping the region's linguistic future. Despite these sweeping changes, Gaulish traditions did not vanish. Many customs persisted quietly through family practices, local rituals, and the stubborn resilience of rural communities. Over generations, the people of Gaul became a hybrid society, Roman in architecture, governance, and public life, yet still carrying Celtic echoes in folklore, symbolism, and communal values. What emerged was neither wholly Roman nor purely Gaulish, but something new, a cultural foundation capable of enduring long after Rome itself began to crumble. As the Roman Empire faced growing instability in the 3rd century, Gaul sat near the frontier, absorbing the earliest shocks of invasions and political chaos. Germanic migrations pressed against the Rhine, military revolts shook garrisons, and economic strains weakened imperial authority. The prosperity of Roman Gaul remained visible, yet beneath the surface the structures holding it together began to strain. These pressures marked the beginning of a long transition, setting the stage for new powers to rise and eventually reshape the land once again. When Roman authority finally began to break apart in the West, the land of Gaul entered a period of uncertainty that would ultimately redefine its future. Imperial administration weakened under the pressure of political chaos, economic decline, and continuous frontier invasions. As Roman legions withdrew and central governance eroded, power began shifting toward local leaders, bishops, and emerging Germanic groups. Among these rising forces, none would shape the destiny of the region more profoundly than the Franks. They originated as a loose collection of tribes living along the Lower Rhine, valued initially by Rome as frontier allies but quick to claim autonomy when imperial strength faded. Their warrior culture, adaptability, and ability to integrate with local populations gave them an advantage over other migrating peoples. In the late 5th century, a young Frankish leader named Clovis inherited a modest kingdom with ambitious potential. Through a combination of tactical brilliance and calculated alliances, he transformed this fragile domain into the dominant power of northern Gaul. His early campaigns targeted rival Frankish leaders and neighboring tribes, consolidating fragmented territories under his authority. Victories won through discipline, negotiation, and relentless pursuit of power extended his influence across large swaths of the region. Yet his most consequential decision emerged not from warfare but from religion. Clovis recognized that spiritual allegiance could unify diverse communities far more effectively than conquest alone. While many Germanic rulers followed Arian Christianity, the Gallo-Roman population remained loyal to Catholic Christianity, led by influential bishops who preserved the intellectual and administrative legacy of Rome. By converting to Catholicism, Clovis secured the support of this powerful clergy, and earned the trust of Romanized elites who still held sway in cities and estates. His baptism in Rheims symbolized a profound merging of identities, Roman, Christian, and Frankish, forming the ideological bedrock of a new kingdom. This act did more than validate his rule. It created a shared identity that bound his subjects together and distinguished his kingdom from competing Germanic realms. Under Clovis, the Franks adopted many aspects of Roman governance while preserving their own traditions of leadership. Latin remained central in administration, allowing continuity with the institutions that had governed Gaul for centuries. At the same time, Frankish customs influenced military organization, land distribution, and concepts of loyalty. This blend of Roman structure and Germanic dynamism produced a uniquely resilient political system, capable of expansion and adaptation in a rapidly changing world. After Clovis' death, his kingdom followed Germanic succession patterns, dividing among his sons into separate but related realms. Although these divisions triggered rivalries and internal conflicts, the overall identity of the Franks persisted, reinforced by shared culture, law, and faith. During the Merovingian era, royal authority was often symbolic, yet the institutional framework of the kingdom continued to strengthen. Bishops and monasteries became vital centers of learning, diplomacy, and social stability. They preserved manuscripts, educated administrators, and maintained networks that linked rural communities with urban centers. The economy adapted to new realities, relying on agriculture, trade routes that survived Rome's collapse, and a growing system of landholding that tied nobles, warriors, and farmers together through obligations and protection. Despite occasional fragmentation, the Merovingian world maintained a continuity that set it apart from the more transient kingdoms rising elsewhere in Europe. As time passed, real executive power shifted to the mayors of the palace, officials who managed the royal household, commanded armies, and controlled the flow of wealth. Among them, the most influential was Charles Martel, whose leadership restored political cohesion and reinforced Frankish military dominance. His victory near Tours in 732 halted further expansion from the Umayyad armies pushing into Western Europe, elevating his prestige and solidifying the authority of his family. This achievement demonstrated that the Franks were more than a regional force. They were a stabilizing power capable of defending Western Europe at a moment of major historical turning. By strengthening the realm internally and externally, Charles Martel set the stage for his descendants to formalize their authority. But even before the Carolingian rise, the essential elements of France had already taken shape. The fusion of Roman heritage, Christian unity, and Frankish leadership produced a cultural and political identity distinct from neighboring territories. Cities retained Roman layouts and legal traditions, while rural communities blended ancient customs with new practices introduced by Frankish rulers. The language evolving across the region carried Latin roots shaped by local dialects and influenced by Germanic vocabulary, laying the foundation for what would later become French. The transformation of Gaul into Francia marked a turning point in European history. It was not a sudden creation but a gradual forging through warfare, diplomacy, faith, and cultural fusion. As Roman Gaul faded and the Frankish kingdom emerged, the people of this land began to see themselves as part of a unified political world instead of scattered tribes or remnants of a fallen empire. By the early medieval period, the building blocks of France were firmly in place, ready for future leaders to refine, expand, and elevate into one of Europe's most influential civilizations.